Yo, what's up? So, I can't help but feel as though what I'm about to poeticize is a place that I've already been. But, as one sharpens their blade and kind of hones in their sword, which is their word, it's a constant refurbishment of thought and fine tuning of this action. Lest I forget, right? With that being said, it's like I've said before, you know, there's so much about so much. And so, before I become just kind of so overwhelmed with everywhere that I could go, I'd like to begin this here before I realize everywhere that I've been and say that none of this matters because I've already been there. Forming the earth and air, canary in hand, I seek to get air, looking for air. How does air get by? By being unnoticed, by being nothing to look at, which means it is neither attractive or unattractive, or you would take fond notice of it. How does one get air then? By knowing that air is an expansive thing, always seeking new ground. Then to get air, find new ground, for everywhere else air is free and beyond grasp. So to find air, one must mine, where air has a chance not to be and a chance to be, where then air has a price and is canned through digging into the earth to find fresh air. It can be as difficult as saying the air is yours outside of the mine. Though digging into earth to find fresh air can be as difficult as saying the air is yours outside of the mine. Try telling the clay what shape it should be, and that it should stay that way long enough for tracks to be laid, giving air a fright as it is about to be lost, so it can reach its potential in its chase to expand, where your ability to find art and heart in earth as oars that continue the track, then telling all this or what it should be, and that it should be what it's not, as it is like air and that it equalizes, laying it then in place and telling it to stay that the track can continue. Then continue to convince all these things that you are above them, that they obey you, and that you can continue the track, appealing then in the moment they wish to spread and make everything get by, and as nothing is air. Look at them with eyes that show the vision of deity that they bow, and then love the bow. Then saying, what's all this for? It was for the air, was it not? That it could be more and could be seen and could be touched and could be felt? Where the earth that has been used to draw the air for its ability to have fret and tunnel? Where then this forms record and gives air the word, world, war? Though then in collapsing the difference and giving earth something to grab onto, by breaking then in the air, the fresh air is lost, and air is then again is what air? In its ability to be for none, being for everyone. Then seeing air by casting these things in it, knowing that these things draw air, for air wants clarity. And though these things seemingly cloud air that air can be seen, these things demand the same clarity in your ability to give them structure enough to be cast. Meaning then air is lost, for they all are. Having got air, the air then means nothing, and you haven't really gotten it, for there is nothing to tell you that you have it. There then in this telling is air's dilemma, and what you carry in a cage as a canary warning you for where you go, only being air once let out of the can, and only having gotten air once you come down and land. The canary obviously loving to go where it almost isn't. For it is in this light that through the warning of its loss, nothing will be, as the one who carries it, where then something high can be seen while being deep underground. Taking then air to a place it's never been, then taking everything there, as air is then composed of everything. For what life is there without air, even though air is like this here nonsense, is what gives things a breath of fresh air. And reading that makes me want to reiterate another poem that I did previous on fresh air, which is what I was talking about earlier, but it's kind of like all these things, even though the title is different, the composition is all the same, and it's like I'm talking about different things, but ultimately it's like the same cliche climax and finale within each of them, and this same beginning. And so it's just like I'm kind of reiterating this story over and over and over, even though the characters and the names have changed and supposedly what I'm talking about is different, right? It's ultimately kind of the same telling. But I think that even with that in mind, it still has some benefit to change the words and the sounds, for in that light you create this new sense of feeling through the meaning associated with the words that are used, even though it's like this song that kind of follows the same train of thought, and it's like even with this, it's like all these things are self-defeating, like this poem that I wrote on paper, where it's like paper is this contradiction, yet it demands both the heat and the water to, make the mulch of the tree that it came from actually come together, but too much heat and it burns up, and not enough, it's not dry. But it's kind of like that contradiction that almost gives all these things structure. It's like a comment that I did on Reddit today, where somebody was talking about platonic and how it meant friendship, but then someone else was talking about how Plato's idea of perfection and things existing in their singular state of perfection, but ultimately I related it to this understanding of perfection through friendship, which is something else understanding you enough to end you, right? Which is like this constant struggle of knowing perfection, but can we know perfection without a dead end? Friendship or a lover, right? But perfection is something that is without those things because it is beyond our grasp, it is beyond understanding. It is something that encapsulates all these things, and in so doing, it is never over, so it has no lover, right? Because nothing can go against it. There is no opposition to something that collapses and contains all these ideals and notions of perfection. And that being said, the next little portion of my live stream here, it's very fatalistic and feudalistic thinking, because it's just like all these words are changing. It's like walking around outside and then you read about all these kind of ancient wars and battles and realizing that it's the same thing. It's just this thing, going on and on and on. The names are changed so that we can have some sense of difference in life, and more tall, being mortal, that we escape the ground, which is the eternal round, and in our height we're able to gain perspective and an understanding of life through mortality. But ultimately there is no such thing as being beyond immortality, no matter how tall you are. Even the mortal itself kind of falls and becomes one with the ground, which is the eternal round. And then in so doing, it's this never-ending sequence and cycle of trying to understand by having this grand mess. The messy men seek for answers that they themselves hid from themselves. Zeus and Jupiter fighting like father and son, one in the wild and one at, home in the structured Judaistic cut and dry diamond aspect of reality. And then each themselves having a dichotomous relationship with themselves, finding yin and yang in each yin and yang. And it's like all these women, who seek mania, but ultimately those who are owned fall into the same category as those who pursue, because they're both driven by passion and possession. And it's like Homer's tale of these wild things, but when he himself is in competition with the house outside, these wild aspects of knowledge that Academus has put within bounds so that it can be normalized and conceptualized, but then we lose a sense of this knowledge in college as, divinity has structure and basis. There is no more ledge for us to walk up to. The copper sharing air enforced policy of what here is through the death of having her until there is no more hair, whereupon donation of body to the great air. What there was is planted through signs, sharing air long enough so that each can have air until the air has grown stale. But who is the great air that it should receive all this air that here can be? And should we follow the signs anyways? Because the signs are for everyone, which means they're for no one. Just like the air, the bow tie, what's divine? When do people bow? But when in the presence of such greatness, whether apparent in perspective, made aware through thought, or trembling with the inability to comprehend, to reconcile, to stand, or to hold, for they wish to let go for its fright and difference of perspective from where they've stood now standing, so they seek help from what they bow to. But does the divine request a bow? Such is the bow tie, for what isn't divine? But how can we know it without it? As everything considered divine receives a bow, so divine can know itself, and those who bow can have more divinity, as divinity can then be more, as divinity moves with the bow tie. The cocaine, where is cock? But where is beauty? What is a verse? And how can it be in a verse, but of its own? A train of thought belongs to who? And what keeps each book in the library bound alone, yet all then bound? How can beauty know beauty, and know another book, while keeping its own pages? Anyways, this is me just kind of utilizing this time in a way in which allows me to have some form of expression. A refreshment, I don't know, man. I do not know. It's all good though. I feel like I should just stop this channel. Either that or make it something as to where it totally kind of derails itself from this track. Because even though it's like the pictures being painted are obviously ones that can be looked at, and yeah, it's a different picture, you know, but it's still kind of following like that same basic principle of what should be in this picture that I'm painting. You know, obviously taking a lot of things into consideration, you know, work and everything else. Where it's like, obviously, the financial aspects of this is definitely residing somewhere else. So, yeah. Hmm. Just a monkey scratching his head. Climbing trees, planting seeds. But really, I don't know what I'm doing. Just trying to retain a sense of perspective, you know, based upon my memories of, you know, who I am, what this place is, where I've come from. It's kind of relaxing sometimes, just like sitting in front of the camera. Obviously, having it being recorded, but then just being able to like just sit here and obviously have nothing be about it. You know, this is just an experience of relaxation. Like, why can't I be relaxed in front of a recording device which is on, and actually have the moment that's being captured uh, be retained? Why does every moment, you know, have to be like this climactic expose of you know, such edgy behavior and thought, um, that it's like on the brink of just destroying itself, because it's trying to create this cliff face of confusion and clarity, you know, and spacing and uh, spacing and definition, you know, where it's like pushing the boundaries of being able to like have the words retain their shape but kind of break them all apart at the same time. You know, why can't I just sit here and like take a nap in front of the camera and have it be something that is like observed, you know? It's like I was telling somebody once, and I have another kind of poem written on this where it's like, what is music? You know? And for me, for the longest time, music was just really like writing. It was just this space and something. It didn't necessarily have to be even instrumental, because what is an instrument but something that resonates with a scene, you know? And so in that sense, the wind kind of blowing across the field and having just that swoosh kind of overcome your body, and it's almost like you're watching the grass shiver with a feeling of excitement, right? And then as you watch this and feel this and then hear this, that is kind of brushed over your being as well, you know? And so where is that in today's perspective of entertainment? Where is that nowadays? It's definitely something that I feel like people have a hard time kind of disconnecting to find. It's like a death almost, because you're doing away with all this expansive, in-depth analysis of things, and you're giving all that up kind of so that you can see a perspective that is so kind of fleeting and really just weightless, that you lose all the possession that you identify with, which is just this thought. Anyways, I'm gonna stop right there.